before recycling them. And flimsy plastic like cellophane or shopping bags can really jam up the works.
If we all do our part to keep recycling clean and green, the results really add up. We should know Waste Management collects and manages millions of tons of recyclables every year.
In 1 year, Waste Management manages enough material for recycling or reuse to fill the Empire State Building 27.2 times, or fill nearly 169,000 Boeing 737s. And last year, we recycled enough paper to save more than 41 million trees.
Like you, Waste Management is always looking to the future and for ways to improve it. One of Waste Management's sustainability goals for 2020 is to increase our recycling tonnage to a whopping 20 million tons per year.
I think everybody should recycle.
With your participation, we can reach that goal and score a big win for the environment and for communities and businesses like yours across North America. Thanks for your time, and remember to always
Recycle often. Recycle often. Recycle often. Recycle right.
Think green.
Think green.
Think green. Think green.
You're not alone. Millions of people are in debt. But there's hope and help from members of the NFCC, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Convenient, knowledgeable, nonprofit, here for you. And you. And you. Be one of the 5 million people who will put debt in its place by 2020. Speak with an NFCC certified credit counselor at your local member agency today and put debt in its place. Go to nfcc.org/enddebt or call 844-359-3823.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection.
Ryan, yeah, he's here. Look at that stare, man. I'm gonna have to move on your street now. It's a lot of travel.
All right, stand by.
No yard. Don't have to mow.
I'll wait for Mark to sit down.
I can't wait to call Mark Gold Ryan Kelly.
Alrighty. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Longmeadow School Committee. This meeting is being recorded, aired live on LCTV, and live streamed on longmeadow.org. It is a legal requirement that anyone recording the meeting disclose that they are doing so at this time. Seeing none, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have correspondence? Mark? No?
No.
Good. Okay. Approval of minutes. There are minutes to approve.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes to the January 15th, 2020 school committee meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor? Okay, any visitor comments? No? Okay. Any school committee announcements or recognitions? Okay. Moving on, business with guests. Tonight we'll be having the presentation of the proposed FY21 school department budget. The administrative team will be present during this portion of the meeting. Dr. O'Shea will provide us with a presentation of development inclusions in the proposed budget. Thank you, administration, for being here. I guess I should have said that at the school committee announcements and recognitions, which I've taken the liberty in going backwards. In the fall, we had the first get-together with the administration and the school committee. Definitely have been talking to Marty and some of the other members about doing something very soon in the spring once all this budget madness is done. So just want to say that, continue to try and build trust and getting to know everybody better and moving forward. So back to the budget.
All right. So, thanks to the entire administrative team for being here. And it's important they're here, obviously, because we do develop this budget collaboratively and bring it to you as a team. We're excited to bring the FY21 budget recommendation to the school committee and the community. This is the first of a handful of stages in the process of developing the FY21 budget. There'll be a public hearing on February 4th, and then the school committee, if it chooses, would have an opportunity to vote on the budget at its February 11th meeting. So I'd like to take you through a few of our plans for the coming year and some of the things we're excited about. And Diane, would you maybe just dim the lights a bit for us? That's great, right there. Yeah, that's good, thanks. So I want to start with just a couple of the factors that are influencing the budget sort of at a macro level. And the first, it probably is worth at least mentioning, talking about the Proposition 2.5 tax ceiling. The community has had a longstanding tax ceiling task force in place that is kind of grappling with the revenue challenge that Long Meadow could face in the face of sort of static property values and limited growth. And so I think it's important that we bring forward a budget that is responsible to that and recognizes that there are finite tax dollars. We're really fortunate to have great support of this community. We're fortunate that the community spends far above what it's minimally required to by the state, and really it's a reason that we've been able to maintain the level of excellence that we have. The second factor that is worth mentioning is the Student Opportunity Act. This has received a fair amount of attention at our meetings here, but the Mass Legislature revamped the funding formula for the foundation budget, and so kind of a recognition that there are a lot of new challenges, new needs that we're expected to work through as educators. And interestingly, the governor just released his budget to kick off the state budget planning season just today. The Chapter 70 aid numbers came in, and frankly lower than what we were anticipating. So certainly not the Student Opportunity Act, though we're excited that it changes the funding formula, that it doesn't necessarily represent a windfall that it might to some other communities. We should note that we'll need to bring to the school committee a spending plan for how additional funds will be spent to close achievement gaps. So every community will be expected to do that. It's kind of interesting because we do spend so far above what is minimally required. So it's hard to think about the Chapter 70 aid as being something additional or supplemental, but we will explore that more and bring a spending plan to you at some point. It'll have to be approved by the school committee by April 1st. So I wanted to mention a few of the budget targets, some of the expectations that we had for ourselves as we were developing this budget. I'll go through these quickly in terms of ensuring that we were making proper investments in student safety and support. I think it's important that we have a budget that is responsive to ever-changing enrollment patterns, that as cohorts of students make their way through the district, we've got to respond appropriately to that. I believe that in some small but very important ways, this budget moves us towards that broader, renewed vision of student success that we have talked about many times this year, and that I hope we will continue to talk about in this community. It addresses some important written district goals. We'll touch on that. It is, I believe, something that is cost-effective and sustainable. We have to be cognizant of what the town can afford, not just this year, but in the years ahead. And then finally, it's long been a priority of the school committee and this community, our teachers, our administrator, to be very attentive to class size, and we think that this budget is attentive to class size and will help us maintain the strong, educationally appropriate class sizes that we've seen over the years. So, I thought this year, sometimes we present the nuts and bolts figures of the budget and then sort of tell the accompanying story. This year I'm sort of flipping that. I want to tell the story first, and then we'll get into the more granular side and talk about the revenue picture and the costs and the allocations. So I want to make it hopefully clear that this is a budget that addresses some key district goals. Sort of paraphrased it for the purposes of the presentation, but addressing safe learning situations, environments, creating them, being culturally responsive, and advancing that continuum of supports, that tiered system of supports that we often talk about. So what does that translate into? It translates into a recommendation to hire a licensed practical nurse, and the thought is that this position would be stationed at the high school. You'll recall that back in the summer, we received a notification from Mass DPH that we were not hitting recommended nursing to student ratios. And so this investment would bring us much closer to those Mass DPH recommendations. And our nurses are at the front lines in terms of supporting students and making sure they're healthy and ready to learn and getting them back to the classroom. So we're happy to recommend that investment. This is, there's some of the items that I'm going to mention here are essentially budget neutral, but they're always part of the allocation picture, and they're part of the, the way budgets and staffing are tied to programming. So you'll recall that Principal Tom Landers had included some goals around creating Tier 2 supports at the high school. And so, to his credit, we have an opportunity to do that. It is likely that we will be able to do this with existing staff. So this is not an addition to the budget, but it is a critical sort of reallocation. The focus would be on skill deficits that 9th graders and perhaps 10th graders have. Transition supports at LHS. This is, again, this is something that is essentially in place now, but we want to remain committed to it. This is to support students who are re-engaging with Longmeadow High School, perhaps after being out for school avoidance reasons or medical health reasons, mental health reasons. And I appreciate that that has become part of that continuum of supports. This is an item, the Center Link Classroom. This is, as you know, per vote of the school committee, this is something that we had created this year, but it needs to be reflected in the FY21 budget. So that's it was not budgeted for in FY20, so it'll need to be accounted for next year. Beth Nelson is here, and Nicole Allen's here. They were forward-thinking in introducing a position that we call a student support specialist at both Glenbrook and Williams. And despite a significant Title I reduction, we want to make a commitment to those positions in the general fund, in the regular budget. So we can talk a little bit about that, but, and Beth and Nicole can answer questions about how that's working out if that is of interest to you. Nick George is here, our technology director. He has been working closely with town officials. We've talked to the school committee about it, but important that we take a look at some cybersecurity software. This would be malware, backup systems for Munis software, a significant investment. You'll see the associated cost on a future slide. Then finally, I wanted to note, again, this is not an addition to the budget, but I wanted to signal to you that we plan to use Title IV grant funds to conduct an equity and diversity audit and develop an action plan associated with that. We think it's something that we can start this year and continue over to next year. So again, I think it's, I'm really excited about it, frankly, because it's an opportunity for us to really broaden the conversation across the whole community around how we can more equitably serve all students. So I can stop there before I move on, but is there any questions on any of those? Take a breath.
I wonder, Marty, if you could just explain a little bit the licensed practical nurse. Is that a position for the high school or for the district just housed at the high school?
It's a position at the high school, but we think that we're under recommended staffing levels at the high school. But the truth is, our nurses are stretched across the district, and we have field trips occasionally that we need to cover students for. We have nurses who, because they have to take days off occasionally because they themselves get ill, could help in that way. And, really just generally providing, a layer of support to the entire nursing team, but the focus would be here at the high school.
So then, would that mean we have 2 full-time nurses at the high school?
Well, this is an LPN position as opposed to, a BSN or an RN position, so it brings us closer to the guidelines. The guidelines are simply guidelines, it's not the law. It's not unusual to have the arrangement that we do, but it would be a second nurse who would work under the license of the RN at the high school. And Jean Fontaine helps coordinate. I know Jean is here sometimes. Jean, if there's anything I left out or you want to add.
I think you covered it.
Yeah, I needed to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that they were available, so if we could hear about the student support specialist at Glenbrook and Wolf Swamp. If you guys want to talk a little bit about why that's been successful.
We kind of match, so this is kind of match.
Do we match? All each other's like. So I think the best way to think of the student support specialist is that it's proactive to students' needs as opposed to reactive. So oftentimes it might be a maladaptive behavior that's impeding their academic growth, but we're able to get in there and have the student support teacher in with the student understanding what that behavior is and helping them support so that they're getting that intervention before they're really in that tier 2 pulled out of the classroom setting. Oftentimes, we've seen this year that we're able to remediate it in that 8-week progress period. So I don't know if that kind of quickly summarizes the what we're doing at Wolf Swamp. It's really those behaviors that you see in the classroom, whether it's disengagement or attention-seeking behaviors, trying to get at the root of what that is and then help move that student forward.
So they're getting targeted kids, not floating through classes and just seeing what's going on?
Correct.
Okay. Same for you?
Yeah, so it's pretty similar as well, but for us, we have, this person now is part of our RTI process. When we have meetings, there's, kids that we're concerned with literacy, with math, and this is like just a different level of it. This is where we really focus on the CASEL competencies. And if, the kids are cognitively fine, but we're really concerned about these other parts. And, we do the one hit, we have 1 out of the 6-day rotation, we have advisory, so we cover the competencies, but there are some students that could benefit from more of that. So we have teachers sort of identify the kids, we communicate at home, we observe the kids in classrooms, we spend time talking to them and interviewing them to hear their side of what's going on, surveying them. We gave that survey, time of the year did we give that survey? Well, I guess the survey at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So we're kind of doing that again now with individual students. That was anonymous, but now we're giving kids the opportunity to share. And then based off of their feedback, observations, and the teacher's feedback, lessons are being created to work with students on individual stuff at the same time as going into their classrooms. So ours does both, works with them like when they're trying to do like surveys or work with them on an individual lesson, but then also spends time in the classroom with them. Structured time and unstructured time.
I have more questions, but I'll let somebody else if they have one.
Anybody else have a question?
Sienna?
You're looking at the
Can I
other
use
screen.
counselor, you got a question?
So is so are they, those identified students, are they then assigned to an 8-week cycle or?
If they're brought up to RTI.
Okay.
And they are deemed to need this intervention, yes.
Okay, so in between that cycle, if somebody comes up and needs, would they just be helped by the counselor then and not fall into this group of pre-identified students for that 8-week cycle, or?
Ours is really academic focused, so it's not necessarily in that range of needing counseling, but
Okay.
oftentimes these are kids that are seen by the school adjustment counselor, the student support specialist, and if things are still not going well, maybe the BCBA.
Okay, so it's like an extra layer of
Correct.
support to kids who might have behaviors that require the counselor.
Correct.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, the one thing I just want to remind everybody, we're here for the budget. And so if the questions are in context to help you better understand the budget, then that's great. If they're to help you better understand a program, then I would invite the admin staff back at a different time to go far deeper into those subjects. So I'm not saying that the questions are bad, I'm just saying let's keep the questions in context of the budget in front of us.
Yeah, thank
Right,
you.
no
I was
problem.
just excited about that.
Yeah, that's good. No?
Thank you, Ernest.
All right.
Any other questions?
Nope.
At a later date? Susie?
At a later date.
Okay.
Money well spent.
Well, thank you. And again, you'll see how that, when we show you the reductions and additions, you'll see how that sort of shakes out in relation to the budget. The next piece of this is another target that I want to focus on is this notion of how can we renew our vision of student success. And it's been a theme for us this year, and it's something that going forward I think will continue to shape our work in powerful ways. The school committee had in its retreat set goals for establishing partnerships for learning and also supporting a new vision for student success. And those line up nicely with some of the district goals relating to providing opportunities for kids based on their interests and their passions and their abilities. And so how do some of these goals translate into the budget for the coming year? I'm excited to talk to you about introducing a career development position here at the high school. And I'm going to jump to, if it's okay, what that might sort of look like at the high school. We think that there is a continuum of sort of work-based learning standards that we can hit if we make this investment in career education at the high school. The responsibilities of this person would relate to supporting the vision of the graduate in a general conceptual way, but more specifically coordinating internships, ensuring that we're providing opportunities for kids along that entire spectrum. So it might relate to career awareness activities where they're doing interest inventories or they're doing tours. It might be more career exploration where they are engaged in job shadowing or mock interviewing for a particular career. Or it could transition to more of immersion activities which relate to internships or apprenticeships or certificates. So this is, I think, a great growth area for us. I think identifying community partners who can work with us to support student learning is a very exciting endeavor for us. I think this will start slow in the sense that whoever is in this position will need to spend some time developing those partnerships, cultivating the relationships, and finding placements for students. But it's something that I think is really tied in nicely to the vision of the graduate and giving kids those sort of, for lack of a better word phrase, those soft skills, those career skills that will complement the sort of more academic skills that they're getting on a regular basis. We would like to include in this, because there'll be some time in this person's schedule, coordination of 504 work at the high school. We think it's an underserved area. We think that parents, students, teachers would benefit from increased coordination and consistency in terms of the development and delivery of 504s. So when we think about how that looks, excuse me, go back. So we can talk more about it. Tom Landers is here, Lisa Estradios, the assistant principal. I talked to high school staff about it today. And we think there's a whole world of opportunity out there for our kids that we're excited about. The other commitment that we're making with this budget is a commitment to STEAM programming at the 6th grade, and Nicole and Neil could address this further if you're interested. But the goal here is to include a STEAM class for all students on a regular basis at the 6th grade. In all candor, we need to make sure we need to understand the implications for teacher schedules and student schedules further. But we'd be happy to report back to the committee at some point when we have that, and the specifics figured out. The other thing that this budget does is to recommend piloting a project-based approach to library services at Wolf Swamp. We have a part-time librarian at Wolf Swamp, that position that frankly has been a bit of a revolving door. We've had a number of teachers, a number of people go through that position, and we think it's an area that if we invest in a full-time librarian, we can introduce project-based approaches to the library services and address those information literacy service standards in a project-based way. Also, we have underway, again, this is a budget-neutral item, but it should be noted, I think, at this stage, because it gets to this notion of a broader vision of student success. We've got an eager group of teachers and administrators that are working to think about what standards-based teaching and learning could look like at the middle level. We've got a sort of a roadmap that is laid out that will result in instruction in a standards-based way and reporting out to parents in a standards-based way to kind of build on the work that we've done at the elementary level. Another opportunity here, and this is on your agenda later on, so I won't linger too much on it, but we were invited to pilot a innovative science assessment. This would be at the 5th and 8th grade. The state is looking to pilot sort of more of a performance-based MCAS at those two grade levels. We were invited because we had applied to the Kaleidoscope program, you'll recall. And so knowing our interest in sort of performance-based assessment in STEAM work at the middle level, they invited us to be part of this pilot. And that's coming up later on your agenda. It does need the support of the school committee. So we can talk later about that. So I wanted just to note, to go back to this visual that I've used frequently to sort of capture some of the many factors that are pushing us towards this broader, renewed vision of student success. And to underscore it further, the programming, the budget, the plans for the 21-22 school year all support and promote that broader vision of student success. So all of these opportunities will give kids opportunities to learn in ways that are tied to their unique identities, that would be more inquiry-based, more research-based, and more project-based. The next piece of this, oh.
Can we take
Yep,
questions
sure,
on that
yeah.
section?
We'll go back to that.
Questions on this section? Yeah, go ahead.
And it is financial, Armin, so thank you for that reminder.
I with great latitude. I just wanted to make sure we were.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, because I'm also excited about this thing, but the internship coordination piece of that, the career development opportunities, is that going to be also, the internship, how we talked about the internship class, somebody to help coordinate that? Would that money
Yeah.
would that person be doing that piece as well?
That would be their primary responsibility, is to coordinate that internship program.
For that
And to
class?
identify placements for kids and make sure that they're addressing those work-based learning standards.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
not like a separate career center?
Well, it's not, it's different in the sense that this person would not necessarily be embedded in a single department, but would exist to serve kids across all departments.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Yes, Kevin.
Sorry, one thing that I just don't know, what is 504?
I'm sorry, so 504s relate to if students have a life disability that prevents them from having access to the curriculum, if there's an impairment of a major life function, they, under the ADA law, they're entitled to a 504 plan.
Okay.
And so we just want to be sure that we are being consistent in the way we work with families to identify eligible students and to develop plans that are consistent and relate to the unique disabilities that kids have. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And just back to the previous slide.
I will say, the Long Meadow, like many communities, the number of 504s that we're seeing is growing.
Okay.
And so we just want to make sure that we're managing that appropriately. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And sorry, the previous slide, I just wanted to, I appreciate the big picture of everything, but I think tying back into Armin's point about making sure we understand the budget implications. So the first point, the first bullet is a new position.
Yes.
And the third bullet is, I think it's half a new position or something like
Correct.
that, right? So those are the two that have
Correct.
budget implications?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So,
Oh,
Can I just-
go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead, Jerry.
Just one question to clarify too, kind of to jump on what you're saying there. But I believe the first one, though, there's a potentially reconfiguring our staffing within the school where it ends up being budget neutral. Even though there isn't that position, there's a reconfiguration of our current staffing to create this position. So in theory, obviously, we don't need, you could make changes within staffing, but my understanding is it's pretty much budget neutral with what our current high school staffing looks like. Correct?
Yeah.
Just so everybody's
yes.
aware
Yeah.
of that, so you kind of follow it.
Well said.
Later on in the presentation, there's going to be something that says additions, increases, and one of those additions, increases is a career counselor.
Correct. And
I'm
then-
assuming that career counselor is that bullet number
Correct,
one.
yes. And then there'll be a
So
sort of
that
a...
doesn't look budget neutral to me.
You'll see a corresponding reduction in high school staffing on the left side of that chart.
Got it, okay. All right, so that
Yeah.
matches up to a different thing that we're
Yeah.
getting.
You could say that
Okay.
it matches up, yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's all, as we're talking through and thinking about it from a financial standpoint, there's always puts and takes.
Sure.
So you have a put, but with a corresponding take of reconfiguring how much money we're
No.
spending and where we're spending it.
Understood.
Because I think the first two actually have that as we get deeper and deeper into this.
Okay.
So just so we understand it from a financial standpoint, even though we're adding a position, we're taking two to
Sure.
go, hey, we should spend our money here instead of over there.
So thanks for Finance Sub. If there's any...
Nope, I just
Good.
wanted to make sure.
No. I
everybody
mean, that's the
followed
purpose of Finance Sub. If you have any input into anything we're talking about, please feel free to step up. Marty, the one question I had was on, I'm going back to that high school career development as well. As we look at the broader vision of what success means, does the collaborative still fit within that, or are we starting to look at ways that maybe to administer services more efficiently?
So when you think the collaborative, meaning the technical education
CTEC,
center,
yeah.
so I think it does. I think this person actually might be the type of person who could communicate with families and tell families about the opportunities that exist at Career Tech, you know, as potential. So the Career and Technical Education Center is where the students receive vocational training through the LPVEC over in West Springfield. And so we have about 16 students, I think, that participate in Career Tech programming. So I would say that this will complement our use of Career Tech over in West Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I asked, like, if you have this person, could they, like if somebody's doing the cosmetology program at CTEC, could this person instead maybe coordinate with a local, salon or something, whereby they would be local, getting the same knowledge maybe, without having to go over the river? I don't know.
Yeah, no, potentially there might be some students who will learn about Career Tech opportunities from this position, or there might be some students who say, well, I only want to stick my toe in that field through an internship, and I don't need the full technical education experience. So that's a really good point.
Perfect.
But we would want this position to mesh with our partnership with Career Tech.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the same page.
Yeah.
So with career and 504 coordination being very different things, what
Yes.
kind of training would a career coordinator need to become a 504 coordinator?
So it's likely we'll post it with requiring a guidance certification. And so knowing the training that guidance counselors are expected to have, we think that that person could also manage the 504 part of the job. Yeah, but that, you're right, it will require a specific set of skills that can work across those two domains. Yeah.
I know when we were interviewing legal counsel last year, 504 was like the main thing that they were all concerned about, like potentially as a threat to community budgets across the whole state.
Yeah. The number of 504s is growing nationwide. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just a reality. Yeah. Anything else on the team? Anything that I'm missing or that we want to add to that? Yeah. I will say, very quick story. I received a LinkedIn post from a student that I worked with probably over a dozen years ago, and he had taken a career interest inventory when he was a sophomore. And the career interest inventory pointed him towards working in public relations and marketing. And so now he's he's working at Disney in a high-level PR position. And he had completed an internship in Western New England, then college's communications department. So, for kids to have these formative experiences in high school, I think it's really, potentially will open up some really important doors. I think what I like about it is that the focus for some kids will continue to be getting into the most selective school, but the focus for more and more kids really ought to be getting into the right school and finding the right fit, finding their path, finding their passion, because ultimately that's what's going to drive them. So I think it's a huge growth area. Geographically, Long Meadow is well situated for an internship program. And certainly there's plenty of people in this community, I think, that would be eager to work with us on it. So looking forward to it.
I have just a quick question,
Yeah.
Marty, and mostly because if I'm wondering it, then people at home are wondering it too.
Yeah.
So if we're adding 504 coordination into this position, what's the current state of how that's being?
Administration, people services, and our school counselors.
Okay.
Yep, combined. But there is not, I think it says not a one-point person who can bring consistency to processes and practices associated with developing 504s.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Another target that we're hoping to hit here is to address 7th grade staffing at Williams. And I included a slide here that in response to some of the conversations I've had with school committee over the last week or so. We currently have 130 students that are projected to roll into 7th grade next year at Williams. And that could break into 5 sections at 26 or 6 sections at 21-ish. 26 is certainly on the higher end of where we want to be in terms of class size, particularly at the middle school. So ideally, we would want to offer 6 sections at 7th grade. And so what this means, though, is that we sort of need a fractional amount of teaching help in each of the 5 disciplines. This budget allows for additional staffing at the 7th grade. Now, what that will look like and how that will shake out is to be determined, because a couple of things that have to happen is we have to identify students that will be, where they'll be placed in math. We have to identify how many students will be taking Spanish, how many students will be taking foreign language. And our enrollment could shift between now and the time that we have that figured out. Our commitment is obviously to put the best, most qualified staff in front of kids. Our commitment is to coming up with a plan that creates manageable, reasonable class size. So we'll need some time to work through that, to talk to staff, to develop a plan that eventually we can bring back to the school committee, because there would need to be specific budget allocations to reflect the plan. So, we have at the elementary level, we have a few classrooms that are on our watch list right now because they might be tipping towards a level where we'll need another section. Rising 3rd grade at Blueberry, Rising 3rd grade at Center, and Rising 5th grade at Center are sort of on our watch list. We have in the budget the opportunity to add an elementary section if needed. I think if we needed to add more than one, we would have the capacity to do that. We'd have to come back to the school committee with a plan for how we might identify some savings in one area to put towards additional elementary classroom staffing. So we can show you the numbers shortly, but I wanted to show you that as part of the big picture story. Appropriate staffing to serve English language learners. We actually had one of our ELL teachers left the district, and this year we were able to reschedule staff to reduce staffing in that area and still serve students completely. And the FY21 budget will just need to reflect that. So that's a reduction that's already in place. I wouldn't want anyone to think that there's a reduction in service in that area over where we are right now. Preschool expansion. Looking at the census, looking at the students we've identified, we think we're going to need another classroom at the preschool level. Jean can talk about that if you have questions. So I'll stop there. Anything we can help make clearer? Excuse me.
I guess I've got a couple. Governor's budget to put a lot towards preschool and early education. Is there any early read on if there's any money there for these type of programs?
Not that I'm aware of. The governor's numbers were not necessarily as high as we'd hoped. So with what was released today, to think that we're seeing the bump for Chapter 70 to support the needs of the district.
Okay. And a question for Jean. On where would you locate that, and would there be any expenses in the physical plant, I guess, needed to accommodate that?
No, because we added a section this year, so we have a furnished classroom for a half day. It would be expanding that to the afternoon section.
Perfect, thank you.
Armin, I just want to follow up though, with the increased number of students, we will be bringing more tuition. So it is a tuition program, we charge $2,000. The budget does reflect about $22,000 in increased revenue coming from the expansion or the increase in the number of students in the program.
And I guess this question for Jean, are we anticipating since it is a paying, are we anticipating that there is a supply for that demand or demand for that supply?
Yes, yeah, for the peer models, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And we're hoping to be able to offer families a full-day option where they could, so one of the classrooms we'd make full day, and that's something that people have been asking for.
Awesome.
Yeah, that they're interested in that. So
Okay,
we're
thank you.
hoping. Yep.
Any other questions?
I just have a
Jamie.
quick question, just more on the tuition that we get for the preschool, is that a static number, or do we generally move that number from year to year?
Because the program's kind of been limited in terms of enrollment, it's kind of been pretty static in terms of the amount. The amount we charge has been pretty consistent for some number of years. But with the increase we did earlier this year by adding the additional half a section and now increasing it potentially to a full day,
Yep.
that's where we're seeing that revenue increase.
Okay. Is there any option to move it north of 2? I guess as well?
I don't know how that gets.
It is set by school committee, so we'll probably
is.
come
Okay.
to you in the
No.
spring.
I didn't know how it was set, so
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know,
Yeah.
kind of where that came from.
It does come through school committee every year.
Any other questions on this section? Okay, thanks, Marty.
All right, so we'll shift to some more of the nuts and bolts of the FY21 budget. Wanted to give you a snapshot of current enrollment. This is not projected, this is current. You'll see that we have, interestingly, we'll be graduating 256 students this year, and we have 180 kindergartners. So that's a sizable swing. We're projecting that we will have a kindergarten class that is probably close to that 180, if not lower, based on the census data, but we'll continue to track that. And I just wanted to provide you with that snapshot, but the next few slides are probably more informative. This is Blueberry Hill, current sections for next year. Notice here, I said that rising third grade class, that is on the watch list. Right now, your budget documents show a teacher being added to that third grade at Blueberry. So that would create 4 sections at Blueberry Hill next year in third grade, and it would reduce class size. I just say that we have that in there as a placeholder, understanding that we're also going to be watching K enrollment, third grade at Center, and fifth grade at Center as well.
So when you say we're watching, does that mean it's already in the budget, or does that mean we are going to potentially need a revision?
We have one position in the budget currently designated for third grade at Blueberry. If we needed to add additional sections, that's where we would probably turn to Tom and say, are there any costs that we can identify that we can reduce? Are there any unanticipated savings so that we can accommodate, those increased classes? So, in my experience, it seems every summer we have been required to add sections after the budget has been baked, and Tom has been able to do that in a way, again, identifying some savings and perhaps identifying some unanticipated revenue. So,
Yeah, I think it's important for the public to know just how that evolves as well. I mean, when we identify these and we keep the watch, you have identified 3 positions to watch, but we're only putting in budget for 1 out of the 3.
Right.
Most of the times, if we get into a position where in the summer, everybody wants to go see Diane and enroll, right? And so we get them all signed up, and then Marty and I have had conversations about this one-off. Hey, what do you think? And we talk about the class sizes. He's talking with the administration. Finance subcommittee takes it up and talks about it, and then it comes to the whole committee to talk about how we fund it. So there's a lot of oversight that goes into those types of decisions, and trying to be as fiscally responsible, but at the same time making sure that we're attending to the needs of the children, and that we aren't overwhelming our teachers either with too large class sizes. So there's a lot of things that go on off camera that make this stuff happen in the end as a team.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think we all recognize that there's a long-standing commitment to really manageable, optimal class sizes, particularly at the elementary level. So we'll continue to track those, we'll continue to update the school committee. This is center school. Again, you see that the rising third grade, next year's third grade, next year's fifth grade. You know, I mean, sometimes we have students unenroll, families move out of town, sometimes we have unanticipated enrollments. We'll just continue to track that, and if we need to, we'll be back to the school committee with some recommendations. Wolf Swamp, we have a little more wiggle room there, and expecting that we'll be able to maintain 3 sections across the board as we have this year. Okay. At Williams, note the Williams class size at 7th grade, it assumes that we're adding, for all intents and purposes, a 6th section at 7th grade, which would bring it in line with what we're seeing at Glenbrook. Okay. So, now,
So, Marty,
Go ahead. Yep.
we have questions about some of that?
Absolutely.
Before we get
Sorry.
to the numbers?
Yep.
That table is one I guess I'm curious about, which is, there's clearly a break between 5th and 6th grade. Do we get kids who are going to private elementary schools come into our 6th grade? And if so, how do we project for that? Because it just seems stark, the difference between K through 5 and 6 through 12.
I think some of that is just a natural break caused by a downturn in births, frankly.
So it has nothing to do with the elementary to middle transition?
I wouldn't say,
Okay.
I wouldn't say that explains the difference between the 238 and the 197.
Okay.
Now, Diane today was kind enough to take a look at, I was interested to see what the how cohorts change as they move from 5th grade to 6th grade, how many additional enrollments we typically get. So over the last, it varies, it's up and down, but over the last 10 years, on average, we see about a 7-student increase in the overall cohort from 5th grade into 6th grade. And then there's just small increases thereafter, at least from 6th into 7th. So, it is worth our attention. I think, looking at the numbers and how they will play out, we need to look around the bend, see around the corner, and as we look at enrollment. Cohorts grow over time. Will that 180 current K turn into 250 students when they're 12th graders? I don't think so. That would be remarkable growth, but it'll go up, but we're not going to see that 256 number, I don't think, for some time, the current 6th grade perhaps. But.
And related to that, right, so the 130 number in 6th grade at Williams,
yeah,
that's going to drop down maybe to one of the numbers that we have in 7th and 8th in next year's 6th grade?
I think it's going to be around 90, 91, 92 students.
Yeah, until 98, I think.
Is that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So then, maybe a naive but obvious question is, presumably we have more 6th grade teachers now at Williams. Will we not need as many 6th grade teachers next year, and that helps us
Yes.
fund the 7th grade
Yes.
position?
Precisely.
Okay.
You'll see a 7th grade increase and a corresponding 6th grade
Okay.
decrease.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though you're adding, it's a budget neutral addition.
In effect, yeah. It's
a reallocation of
Yes.
FTE.
It's just that it's more challenging to figure it out at the 7th grade because of the introduction of foreign language, level math, et cetera. So, yeah.
I just have one other question. So how far out do we usually start thinking about middle school? Do we usually wait till 5th grade or 4th grade? I'm just looking at the 3rd grade numbers. We don't know which middle school they're going to yet. We just know the two elementary schools are gonna get split out, like, some of the kids are gonna go to one middle school, some are gonna go to the other. But that could end up being a very interesting scenario at that point in time. Do we start looking at that 4th grade, 5th grade? What's our general, I mean, we can't make adjustments now, people can move out of town.
No, we usually look, I mean, we can plan where any student currently enrolled will end up in middle school based on their current address. So we do project out for all the way down to kindergarten, that distribution. There are some students that aren't assigned based on being here through a program, school choice or Medco, where we have the flexibility to place them. So historically, we see a pretty even distribution between both middle schools. You know, there are occasionally, like the current 6th grade, where you'll have some blips in terms of the outlier. But yeah, it's usually a pretty good distribution.
Okay. No, I was just thinking from staffing and, you know, we're talking about the puts and takes of different class and cohorts moving. You obviously have a pretty decent sized cohort that'll be there right behind those. So just making good decisions. I was just wondering when we start thinking about that. It's probably next year or the end of next year, really thinking through it, just because even Wolf Swamp, I mean, you have a very high, you know, ratio here in 3rd grade, and then you're going to throw 2 of the biggest classes from Center and Blueberry into that mix. So eventually.
Yeah, but after this current 6th grade, I mean, our total enrollment's really down in 1st grade right now at 209. The rest are just about 200.
So you think it'll...
I hopefully, with the ability to move students that are here through a program, we can hopefully equalize the students in the 2 middle schools. But again,
keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some changes, move in and move outs, and so the numbers will fluctuate a little bit, but hopefully we'll be okay with 5 sections in each of those buildings in 6th grade.
We get the NESDEC numbers, which tries to do a projection, which hasn't been exactly, I mean, I think for planning the high school, we thought we were going to be about 917 right about now, and we're right about 943, so it's run a little bit more than what NESDEC was projecting, but I mean, that was 10 years ago, so, you know, they keep doing a updated population growth, and so it will, I think, when did we share that? Right about spring?
I think we got it in December, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We got it in December.
Okay.
Yeah, we can resend that to the committee, that enrollment report. Anything else on class size projections? All right. So, at the highest level, this slide shows you the revenue that we would need and the overall increase in expenditures. So, noting that we are expecting a decline in what is known as special revenues, we would need a request to the town of $874,138 over FY20. When the special revenue decrease is factored in, the overall increase in our budget that we're projecting recommending is $706,073. And the next slide is by funding sources, is on the revenue side. It breaks it out. You'll see that most of our funds, most of our work relies on the contributions from the general fund. So let me just stop there for a minute, and this is where, you know, again, at the highest level, this represents the contribution that we would expect from the town via the general fund.
Can you go, raise my hand. Can we, just the last slide, and can you give me the exact number too, because I don't like to be general, but just so everybody knows as well where our starting point is too, because I think this is a great slide, but the reality is we've already agreed to contractual obligations of all of the teachers, every unit, which represents a very large number of all this, that you should at least know as you're going into and looking at this at a high level, which is 901. So $901,000 increase. We really have no choice. We've already contractually agreed with all the different units, and that is all, you know, we're obligated to do that. just from a starting point, just so everybody is aware on here, because you had provided that in finance sub. But that's just a thing to know that we really can't change any of that. That is what it is. The only time you can change that is within the negotiations, if something changed at that point. But that's just merit and just normal course of business, so. But it's 901, what is it, is that what it?
902.
902. So just so everybody is aware of that, because it's a pretty big number that isn't an adjustable number, so.
The only way it would be, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
I didn't.
You're fine.
The only way it would be adjustable is through reduction.
Attrition, reductions, workforce, if Prop 2.5 came where you had to make adjustments, yes. But from an overall current funding, there's merit and salary adjustments that equal 902.
And it's not just those salaries, it's also out of district tuition. Those are contractual obligations, right? So that 902 includes all of that. Insurance
Not
costs?
the out-of-district, no, those
Okay.
are just our salary contractual
Okay.
obligations.
And the salary includes like health insurance?
Does not include health insurance.
No, okay.
Health insurance is.
So that's also a contractual.
It is also a contractual
there's a
obligation.
lot.
It's a
Right.
big number. I just want to make sure everybody understood that
No,
part of it,
that's
because it's one of those ones where we have control over it, yes, if a change in staffing was appropriate. But from the way it's currently, way we're funding, it's an automatic 902 that we're adding into our budget, just so everybody's aware.
So that 902, salaries, COLAs, steps, and lanes. Just personnel-related contractual obligations.
And longevity?
No,
No, okay.
it's separate.
But, I mean, if we look at the top left column there, attrition is the opposite of contractual obligation, right? So, I mean, I think if I'm somebody from the town, I would take 902, 903, or whatever, subtract the 256, and I would get almost 650 as my actual contractual obligation. Is that a fair way to interpret those top two rows? Or the top row, I guess.
Yes, I think you could most certainly make that connection between the two. Our attrition this year, though, is probably double what it's been the last 2 or 3 years. I'd say 110 to 125 is our average attrition.
Okay.
So it's higher than normal. But yeah, I think
But you
there's
have to
always
link
some.
those two things.
Yeah, there's always some savings
Yeah.
through staff attrition
Yeah.
and turnover.
Okay.
So Tom, by attrition, you mean, just for clarity for anybody that might be watching?
Yeah, so when an employee leaves, they leave at a certain salary. When we replace them, we are usually, not always, but usually hiring the replacement at a lower cost. So when we plan for those replacements, we make an assumption that we'll be hiring somebody at a certain level on a salary schedule. And the difference between the employee's salary that is leaving and the new employee's salary is the attrition.
Yeah, and I would say that it's not, that's how the math works, but for Long Meadow, we have a bunch of wonderful, experienced educators in town who are retiring at certain points in their career, and when we do the replacements, they're being replaced with people that are new into the field and encouraging them to come into the field of education. So that's working into the math, as opposed to just don't anybody get the idea that we're just replacing high salaries with low salaries, because it's not what we do.
And you have to base that on, conditionally, because there may be certain
Right.
positions that are harder to fill that you may have to have a little bit of wiggle room to hire at a higher rate
Exactly.
based on the certification.
Yeah, and I would reassure anybody watching, I feel like we've been in a position to hire the most talented, qualified people that come to us. So I don't feel that we have had to cap it or be overly, we get the best people we can to put in front of kids.
Marty, do you mind going back 2 slides?
Sure.
To the over.
That one?
Yeah. So just if I do the math quickly, again, on the top row, for the increase we're asking from the town, if my math is right, that's essentially a 2.5% increase.
Your math's right.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, the select board said they're raising the taxes by 1.75%. Is that right?
That is their goal, is to increase the, yes, tax rate by 1.75%.
Okay, so to me, those two numbers seem to be in conflict because we're a huge proportion of the town budget. So is it possible that the select board comes back to us and says, we're doing a 1.75% increase? Figure it out. Again, never having been here before,
Yeah, I think that's the purpose of introducing the budget sort of in stages tonight. Public hearing on the 4th, and then the committee will have another crack at it on the, to vote on the 11th. So it's really, you want to present a number that represents what we need, but also is manageable on the town side, you know. And I think the challenge here is that the revenue picture on the town side is not settled. They only, you know, just heard today what local aid projections might be just based on the governor's budget. And I think, you know, they're already reporting to us that the local aid numbers came in lower than what they projected. So we think that this is a reasonable, you know, responsible number that we hope will be manageable, but they are, in many ways, they're in the same place we are, trying to identify what their revenue picture looks like and what their cost picture looks like. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's some of the feedback that we should try to gather from select board, town manager, town treasurer.
Yeah, and the goal is to try and get a cooperative working budget with Paul and Lynn and the select board to move forward to town meeting in May, such that, you know, we're of a nice cooperative budget at that point. So process, just for everybody to understand at home, is we will talk about this tonight. We will then have our public hearing in a few weeks on this budget. Finance subcommittee will continue to meet in the interim to address any changes or any questions, concerns. Then the budget gets taken to the select board for going through it just like this. They'll be asking the same questions. The chair of finance sub will be going to that meeting and representing the budget. And then after that, the select board will put together their final budget. How it affects us is the final number. They don't do line item like we talked about with our attorney last week. At some point, there'll be a final number, and hopefully it's the number we're presenting or asking for, which we consider to be reasonable. But and we'll also have to cooperatively work with the finance committee in town, who gives advice on the budget or advises on the budget as it goes to town meeting. So looking forward to a cooperative and collaborative process with all the other boards in town.
So this slide is really maybe the most descriptive, provides the best explanation of the reductions recommended and recommended increases. And so in many cases, there is a increase that corresponds to a reduction. In some cases, there's not. It's worth kind of spending some time on this slide. I think we've hit on most of it in our earlier discussions tonight, but there might be something there that you feel like we haven't adequately talked about. So maybe leave it open to your questions or comments.
Any questions, or are people digesting?
Yeah, I just have one question. The one near the bottom, the second one from the bottom, the 7th grade staffing, that basically represents a 0.2 of 5 different teachers, and that's how we're coming up with that value?
It's a placeholder to try to address whatever the solution is.
So it's the estimate of that, you know, obviously a 0.2 of 5 different is 5 different disciplines too, you know, so, okay.
Wait, I'm hearing two different things. You're saying this is a placeholder of money to find a solution that will work for the school. It doesn't necessarily have to be 0.2 of 5.
doesn't have to be, that is what is needed. How we address that, I think, is still in the works, being
Like if you
discussed.
could find a certified teacher who has dual certifications and everything at 0.5, you could use that instead of, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be cool.
And,
You put that posting out?
It's called the unicorn.
That's awesome. Look at that.
Kevin.
So, just, if high school parents are out there, maybe they have the same question I have, which is, the high school specialist teacher, Marty, maybe you mentioned what that was. I just don't remember.
That position ties into and if I have the title wrong, Mr. Landers, correct me, a pupil adjustment classroom teacher who has served students with really sort of disruptive behaviors who need an alternative setting. The services in that area are frankly less needed than maybe some other services that provide the sort of targeted supports to kids. It also clears the way for us to invest in the career education position. So I don't know if that's a fair description, Mr. Landers, if there's anything you want to add to that, if that's,
It is. I would say that when I came into the district almost 16 years ago, that class, we had 1.5 of those classes, alternative classes, and that need has gone down. We've seen needs increase in other areas, mental health needs, strictly learning needs, but the behavior needs have decreased. So it's an allocation of that. That person is retiring at a pretty high salary, and we're seeing other needs.
anything else on here that needs any additional explanation? The software line, that's a $51,553 increment. It is a software that will serve both town and school. Town software, technology, IT expenses are in the school budget, so it's worth noting that that is part of the partnership, I guess, that we try to establish with the town to make sure that we're addressing their needs through our technology budget. Leslie?
So I think given, some of the conversations that we've been having, especially with, the line contractual obligations up there, and I thank you for giving the detail of the enrollment. In the budget detail that you provided in our packets, there's information on the actual numbers of FTE.
Yep.
And that's what I'm assuming, based on that's what you're proposing. But we have 4 or 5 years of historical data on the budget. So I think it might make sense, and I hope you can maybe provide this to the committee. I'm interested in seeing it. What has been the historical trend of FTE for each of the areas? Because we just have the one number on FTE, but I think the historical data would help, just to understand, the entire scope of the story.
Yeah, I think that would be worth the committee reviewing, and Susie brings up a good point. If there's other information that you think you need to make an informed decision on this recommendation, we have some time, we can pull it together, but we'll definitely pull together that historical FTE trend number for you. Yeah.
I think it's important to identify that the needs of students, and this is not unique to Longmeadow, it's all around the country, the needs of students are changing, the needs, their cognitive needs, their social emotional needs are changing as a result of, the world we live in. And so, I think a lot of the programming that you're proposing is definitely aimed at addressing those. But I think we just need to understand, how that all shakes out in terms of the historical data, how many teachers and how many, support staff we have, how many, all of that, just, it would help provide a good picture of
Absolutely,
historical trend.
yeah. And if you're thinking of anything now or at any point over the next couple of weeks, if there's some additional information you need, certainly let us know. That So when you net it out, that $706,000 increase, that's the net increase, what we're expecting in terms of projected expenditures for the FY '21 school year. To give you a little more, some historical perspective on the year-to-year general fund increase, you'll see that the recommended, the request here for $874,000 increase in the general fund, it is on the, I'd say, on the upper end, but not inconsistent with some requests that we've seen in the past. Okay? And a quick brag moment to reassure everyone that we're getting a proper return on our investment and that there's adequate bang for the buck. These are statistics that we've shared in the past from niche.com and some things that we're very proud of. And this is an organization that looks at a number of factors ranging from test scores to sort of customer reviews to federal data on student performance and participation. So impressive stuff both at the state level and the national level. So you've seen those before, but I'd like to bring them out every once in a while. And then, of course, looking at MCAS scores and the performance of our students on a couple of other indicators, AP exams. We feel like our kids continue to perform as well as any kids in the state of Massachusetts and certainly fare well nationally. So we're open to your questions. The team is here. If there's anything else that we haven't hit, I appreciate the conversational nature of this presentation. It's been nice to do it as kind of a back and forth as opposed to just clicking through the slides. So, anything else that we can explain?
I guess the one thing I'll open up, I know Susie had that request for data. Is there any other information you feel like you don't have to be able to go forward? Yes, Kevin.
Just one minor thing in the general fund revenue slide that was, I don't know, 5 or so before that. Sorry, go down a couple. One more. That one.
Yeah.
It'd be great if we had what % increase those were year to year. Because I can do the math for one of those years. I can't for the other.
Yeah. Would you like the percentage increase on the general fund increase?
Yeah.
As opposed to the total increase on the entire budget?
The general fund increase. Okay. I mean, just another column on that table would be great.
Totally. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. Thank you.
Marty, I don't know if it's I'm going to ask it anyway. If there's a way to categorize the increases by district goal, like how much money are we looking to increase towards social emotional learning? How much money are we looking to increase towards differentiation? How much money are we looking to increase towards?
Might be tough to tease that out. We could take a crack at it. I think it's tough to tease it out because so many of these things are intertwined. So when I think about even adding an LPN, that's a person that provides some critical SEL type supports, but is also an important member of just providing student safety. So it's tough to tease it out, but we can take a crack at trying to connect those dots a little bit more.
I'll poke around with it. Thank you, though.
Any other questions, concerns before we close up?
I have one last one, and I agree with what Kevin's saying, but are we saying we're going to get what the town, like the town did 175, we're going to have both percentages, right? What we're going up as a percentage of our total and what the town was allocating? Is that what you're, because I completely agree with what you're saying. It would be nice to see those, but we're going to have both of those?
The % increase on the school budget or the town budget?
Or
Is that what
both.
you're saying, or both?
I kind of want to see both. I mean, I liked your question on there where, like, the town went up 175. What did we go up? What did the town go up last year, the previous year? What did we go up? Do we have that?
Well, I
Just would be interesting to see.
Question a little more. Are you asking about what the increase, the property a tax amount by, or what they increased the
Yeah, they
budget
threw out
by?
the 1.75 number that they are utilizing this year.
Yes.
I'd like to see, I don't know what they did last year, I didn't know what they did, but just seeing those,
Yep.
and then also seeing what our percentage increase, it'd be kind of nice just to see what that looks like.
Looking for like the 17 million, what percentage of the 51 million that rose over the year?
Sure.
Yeah.
But, I agree with you, because, again, if I do my math quickly,
Yeah.
the general fund revenue increase we're asking for is 2.5%.
Yeah.
Because of the impact of the special revenue, the increase in our budget is 1.9%.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that's what you're asking, are those two numbers, because the special revenue impacts what's going on. So I think it would be great to have both those
Yeah,
items.
just to see it and see how it's trending, and what did we do this year, because I can see, I agree with you. You see, that's not the display, but
Hold on, let's clarify what we're asking for, because I've heard a couple different things. Like, I think I heard you wanted to know non-school budget, what percentage that went up. Am I hearing you right on that?
the town.
The town?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So town side, what did the town side go up?
Revenue or
Historically.
expenditures?
Budget.
Well, expenditures
Approved budget.
includes
Approved budget.
revenues, right?
Approved
Yeah.
budget.
Town meeting, approved budget.
Okay.
Spring town meeting, or annual town meeting.
With all applied special revenues.
Right.
With all applied special.
Yes, yes,
Does
exactly.
that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
it makes tons of sense.
Yes.
And I agree with you. And I'm gonna bow to your PhD in chemistry, and that the math is
have a
correct.
calculator.
Yeah, okay.
But the rest of us would use this.
Just mere mortals use calculators.
I didn't use the cosine budget.
I really thought you were doing it in your head. Not that impressed anymore.
You've lost it.
That's funny. Okay, so we got that, and we got that. We're good now. Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, then I would advise everybody here and watching at TV that the materials we're looking at will be available on the website, the school LPS website tomorrow, and available at Town Hall should you want to pick up a copy there.
Can I say that they'll be available Friday, because I think the detailed budget documents will be available, and we'll also make the slide deck available too, with some explanatory notes, maybe on Friday.
Okay, great. So be it known. All right, thank you, Evan. We really appreciate you guys being here, and I think you've stirred some things up about wanting to dive deeper into some stuff, so that's good too.
Thank you, everybody.
Tom and Lisa, are you guys up next?
Yeah. Love you guys.
You don't need our water here.
There's one slide. Sorry.
And there's a little bit of a transition right now as we transition from budget to Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Educational Opportunities booklet, Tom Landers and Mrs. Fradios. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. Presenting us with a proposed Educational Opportunities booklet for course offerings for the 2020-2021 school year. The school committee, after hearing this, will have to make a motion and vote on this. So, you guys have the floor.
Thank you so much. I wanted to, for viewers at home, I'm Thomas Landers, principal at the high school, and I asked Mrs. Lisa Estradios to join us. So we have two assistant principals, and the reason I asked Lisa is because Lisa also serves as one of her, in her long list of duties as an assistant principal, she's our academic dean. So she has helped me with this, worked closely with us and our school counselors and our faculty. So I thank her for being here as well. So we had what I think was a nice and productive conversation at curriculum subcommittee. Had some feedback. You have in front of you a few documents. One is changes or adaptations to existing courses, some of them substantive, some of them minor. And then you have a second packet with proposed new courses and courses that are no longer running. And those courses that are no longer running have not run for several years. It's actually a mistake. The health and wellness course that it ran in 17-18, that's a mistake. It has not run for several years. So then I included a cover letter for you, included a visual attempt at the vision of the graduate, which you see on the screen, and then a proposed language change just for transparency purposes, educating students and families about what to consider in course selection. We had some dialogue at subcommittee about maybe reiterating some things and providing some examples when you're considering coursework. So, I will start with the image that you see on the board. I want to thank Deborah Callahan, our art teacher, because she helped me with this. But what I wanted to try to portray was a quick snapshot of some of the most pronounced competencies of the vision of the graduate in these new courses. So while I would say that all 6 competencies of the VOG are embedded in all courses, and that's the goal, I chose some that are no-brainers, that are going to require our students to problem solve, collaborate, think critically, communicate, etc. So that's what that effort is, to give you a visual of why we're bringing these courses forward. As I said in the cover letter, it's a robust year. We're bringing more courses forward than we've brought in several years. I want to acknowledge the work of the faculty. There is the letter of the vision of the graduate, and then there's the spirit. And you know, our department chairpersons and our teachers have embraced the spirit of that. We have chatted. It's really been about 1 full calendar year since we've been using the verbiage of the vision of the graduate. It was last year this time when we were getting back the results of the community, we were deciding on that, and that has heavily influenced our dialogue, our focus on professional development as it relates to NEASC process that we're going through. And I asked department chairpersons and teachers to consider that when we were talking about new courses, and they responded with energy and enthusiasm. So that's what that is. If there are any questions about that, I can take them, or I can sort of give an overview of the 2 packets that you have in front of you. So you have 2 packets in front of you. I don't want to read through them, but what I wanted to just kind of give an overview. I'll look at the adaptations to existing courses first. The real substantive changes to the, I think that the wellness class is self-explanatory. We've chatted about that. Students were not signing up for our 11th grade health and wellness option. It has been on the books for numerous years. It has never run. I think the phrase that I used last time I was here was that students are not coming to the class. We're going to bring the class to the students in 11th grade wellness. The effort of the art department is really to make sure that the students are keeping the courses, and the teachers are keeping the expectations that you should have your work judged by a jury, that you should have some public presentation, that you should publicly display, present your work, but they wanted to cut down on the cost. That's as simple as it gets. So, and some costs were small, as you see there, but philosophically they wanted to do that, and they wanted to provide, while there are some options that cost money, there are also free options. So it's as simple as that in terms of the several adaptations that you see to the art courses. In terms of proposed new courses, I won't go through in detail. The very end of the packet is the social studies classes that we came here and we talked to you guys about in September, and you were supportive of, but I wanted to include that in this packet just to remind you of the changes that are going on there. And as a matter of fact, the superintendent and I heard a quick description from Lori Snyder, one of the social studies teachers, who just today, about how that civics action work is going. So, in this packet, you'll see that we introduce an advanced computer science course. This would be the third option for a comp sci course. The feedback from students was that many of our students would take and be very, very successful either in 10th or 11th grade on the AP Comp Sci, and there's nothing more than that, so this is a reaction to that. We hope that this is going to feed a need of students. We've talked about the internship class several times. It is based on the budget that we just heard, that would be part of the new position, if that is okayed. But we were also ready to run that course from an existing teacher. The hope is that we can do even more than just run this particular class, and this will be a semester class. It's open to seniors. We want to make it open and available to all students, but we also want to have criteria. We want to make sure that the students we're sending out from Longmeadow High School to Longmeadow and to the greater Western Mass community represent us, and we are confident that they are going to represent us in a positive light. Accounting 2, Accounting 2, which is a college prep level, that's a student need that's been identified. We do have Accounting 2 honors. You shouldn't only have to take the honors course. Business and Technology Department felt strongly about that. The Environmental Science course is another option for 11th and 12th graders. We've had a lot of dialogue about, does physics make sense for all 11th graders? For many 11th graders it does, but it doesn't make sense for all 11th graders. We wanted to create a few more opportunities. So that's an opportunity that our teachers created and are excited about, and it is as topical as it gets. We anticipate that this will be a popular course for many students. We have an AP environmental course, but we don't want to just have. Shouldn't have to just study environmental science within the AP framework. We want to make it more accessible.
Would this lead into APES, or would
it doesn't have to.
Okay.
It could.
But it could, right?
It could. You're not, we were asked that, and because we have more freedom on this curriculum to kind of go deeper, it's different from the very structured and mandated AP structure. You could, but you certainly don't have to.
Okay.
We also have had, in the dialogue that I referred to in regard to physics, we have all kinds of physics at Longmeadow High School. We have numerous levels, but years ago, about 8 years ago, the College Board made some structural changes. At that time, we had an honors physics class. We decided, because what we taught at that time in the honors physics class at LHS was very, very similar to the new course that was being proposed by the College Board, AP Physics 1. We decided to, why not call it AP? Why not give our students the advantage of taking that? If they're that prepared, why not give them the AP designation on their transcript? And that will probably increase the probability that they would take the test. You don't have to take an AP course to take the exam, but that was the thought at the time. While we see that AP Physics 1 is a good course for many students, we see a need from our student body of another option. It is going to allow for more depth, more hands-on learning, more learning by doing relative to the AP class. It's an honors course. It will be rigorous, but we had the option in terms of teacher preps. Sometimes that is a challenge when you're trying to build new courses. It's not a challenge within our physics department. They wanted to do it. They're excited to teach it, so we want to bring it forward as an option. It'll be interesting to see how many students sign up for honors physics versus AP Physics 1. We can run them both, but we'll let the numbers decide that. We'll let student choice decide that. And then lastly, on that page, you see the Principles of Engineering and Sustainable Energy, another effort to bring more science opportunities to 11th graders, but we've included 10th graders in this one as well, had some dialogue about that. Fully anticipate that it'll mostly be 11th and 12th graders, but open to 10th graders, and it is another option at STEM. We had some dialogue at subcommittee, Kevin, and you had mentioned some verbiage. I think you will see that reflected in the course selection. We had discussion about where that should go, decided not to put that only for this class. We wanted to be uniform in our approach, so we put it in a general way, but we agreed that that should be maybe one of the examples. So those are the courses that we're proposing. And the courses on the next page are courses that have not run in several years, sometimes because there's no room in student schedules, sometimes because they've become so common, the skills have become so commonplace that they, I guess, don't warrant a class in and of itself anymore. But those are listed, and as the column on the right shows, these classes have not run for several years. And the last part are, like I said, the history, social studies classes that are being replaced with the new ones that we brought to you, and that is as a result of the state mandated changes in the curriculum and civics curriculum, state curriculum. Course selection language that you see, a separate page. We have really tried to be very intentional in getting students and families to think about course selection over the last several years. I think we have improved the process. We have 2 days in late winter where we stop and pause and have students receive feedback from their existing teacher. We push out information to families, and the crux of that is really both our effort at outreach and education of students and families, and also the school counselors' ongoing relationship with students. So that's a huge part of this, but we just wanted to include that, and as I said before, we wanted to include a few examples, things that may not be required to graduate, but we want to, as I looked through our book, it didn't mention the nuance, for example, of world language. World language, if you want to go to a four-year school, in most cases, not in all, you need that as a requirement, but you don't need that to graduate. Most people know that. Most people are educated by our counselors, but we wanted to include that to be transparent. And also, we thought that the example that we had discussed at curriculum subcommittee made sense, especially in light of the fact that we think that we're going to have a significant amount of students who might be excited about the engineering course, the environmental science course. So those are our proposals. We're excited about them. We're ready to hit the ground running, and we ask for your support.
We'll open it up to questions. Susie?
Well, as the chair of the curriculum subcommittee, I thought it'd be helpful to, just give a summary of, we did have the opportunity to look at, in particular, the new courses that were proposed, and had a lot of dialogue, and thank you to Principal Landers for fielding all of those great questions and, allowing us to really dive into what's been offered. The curriculum subcommittee supports through vote that these courses are approved. I want to speak on behalf of myself right now that actually two of the opportunities that I'm really excited about are the internship, opportunities for students, really giving that chance for students who need some exploration, need some hands-on experiences, need to immerse themselves in, a passion, that they have that opportunity. And I'm super excited about the sustainable energy principles of engineering, because I see that as building the skills that are essential in this 21st century for students, and meeting a need that, oftentimes our schools across the country are trying to meet, right? That there's deeper learning happening, there's project-based learning happening, there's collaboration and skills, all of the things that you're trying to accomplish in the vision of the graduate. We did have a conversation about, offering it at the college prep level, and I understand, that one of the reasons for that is to sort of explore where the course goes and then determine at a later date, whether or not that could be an honors option.
We could bring that back in a future year and
Right.
ask for the same course with another level, absolutely.
Right. And I think it's important to identify that because unfortunately in a lot of high schools across the country, and I'm sure Long Meadow's no exception, kids can be a little motivated by how things are going to affect their GPA. So certainly want to, kind of advertise that course is well worth taking, even if it's not at the honors level. But hopefully that we can push that that option, and hopefully this is the start of even more options that are really looked at that interdisciplinary level that could transition into those honor level options. But I applaud the faculty in coming up with something so, kind of new and fresh and meeting the needs of students. So thank you. That's my own personal take on that. Thank you. But I don't know if the other members of the subcommittee wanted to mention anything.
I just have two quick comments on more questions. So on the, it's more just to understand the process, but the prerequisites on here, are we usually hard and fast with that? Or on all of these it says or department chair approval? Do we approve a lot of that, or is it pretty much you either meet the prerequisites or sorry, this isn't the right class?
Good question. So we want to provide competent guidance to set students up for success, to have prerequisites. But over the last 5 to 6 years, you've seen an increase in the language of saying or departmental chair approval. It gives flexibility when needed. The AP, the new Comp Sci, the post-AP Comp Sci course that we're talking about is a perfect example of that. In most cases, students who will need the information in the AP in order to sign up for the advanced computer science topics, but not in every case. Students may be self-motivated. They could get there in all kinds of ways. So we've added that, and then I would remind the committee that we have the waiver process. So the waiver process, we educate, we advise, we make a recommendation, and then at the end of the day, we support the student making the best decision for him or her based on their effort, their passion, their work ethic. We say very often, students leave us in late June, they return in late August. I'm simply 2 months older. They're a world of difference in many cases. They have matured. They've become self-motivated. So I just want to say, at the end of the day, we offer that, we support that, and it's funny, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we ran the statistics on how many students who waive in, and we had very, very high success rates for student waives in. Sometimes no, sometimes in the math, there are gaps in learning, but, so there are a couple ways to get there: recommendation, department chair approval, or waiver. And it ultimately leaves the decision with the student and the family. Does that answer?
But we watch it, and obviously knowing, if we have 50% of the kids who are getting into these classes are being waived, we obviously
I wouldn't say
keep
50%.
I don't know. I'm just making a number.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it is, but we watch it as an administration.
We do, and we talk about that as with department chairpersons, and we look at that data. And if there's a real problem or issue, if a student has made a mistake after that first quarter, they can go back and that's the only aspect of a waiver. If they waive in, we ask them to stay for that first 10 weeks. And the reason for that is that we don't have I don't want to pretend that it's a huge number, but there's a significant number, and we might have to rebalance classes at that time. So, and it's also sometimes the student is worrying and kind of, panicking 3 weeks in, but 6 weeks in, the ship is stabilized a bit. But we look at that, we watch that, and we offer that as an option to make the final decision about what class you want to take.
Compared to what many schools do, I think Long Meadow High offers a fair degree of flexibility to allow students to waive into classes if they're up to the challenge, and typically they are up to the challenge. So, credit to the high school for working with families. They're not, many schools are much more rigid that, the third day of September goes by and you're locked in for the year. But they're good about working with families to get kids appropriately placed.
So I just have one follow-up question to that. I have two questions. The first follow-up to that, so is the parents required to sign off on that too, or is this just the child's choice?
Yeah, that's a form with a parent and.
So the parents going, yep, my kid should be in this AP class, they love it and whatnot, so they're aware of it.
They're aware of it.
I was just wondering, I mean, it's very similar to a college. I mean, you can go in, have teachers sign you in, in certain cases, you usually have to meet the prerequisites, but, okay. And then just my follow-up question, and then I'll be done, Armand. So can you just remind me on the, I know we made adjustments to 11th grade health, so we're getting rid of the wellness for young adults.
Right.
Is that a health class, is that a year, is that like a semester, college terminology, or a full year's worth of health class for that 11th grader? And is all of this class included in that curriculum?
So are you talking about the class that has never run and we're getting rid of?
Yeah, which I love all the topics, because I think it's one of those areas where it's easier to avoid just because it's not as kind of, I guess, appealing to maybe. But
I think they couldn't fit it into their schedule. It was a semester offering that never ran because I think students are so booked and their priorities in the 11th grade are I love that music course, I want to take that art course, I want to take that science course, or whatever, their core courses plus their personal interests. So I think that we know from student feedback that they express an interest in wanting to revisit those topics. And Mrs. Roy is one of the more popular teachers in our building, and they said we'd love to visit with Mrs. Roy and have another class with her, but there's no room. So is everything included in that third quarter? No, but we've been very, Rita Hawker, department chairperson, Megan Roy, our health teacher, the rest of the wellness teachers, in conjunction with our three social workers, our two social workers who act as social workers, and Shelley Warren, who acts as our substance abuse counselor. We've all, and school counselors, guidance counselors, have all, through the school climate survey, through other means of student feedback, we're trying to take the most pressing challenges that our 11th graders are in need of a booster shot, for lack of a better term, and we've tried to do that. There are other aspects of good decision-making, collaboration, learning to be an upstander rather than a bystander, intertwined and embedded into quarter 1, 2, and 4. So, we are, rather than, we've been trying to do these things not this formal, we've been trying to do these things embed them into the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade wellness courses, and we have done that, but we really want to attack juniors, and I think we chatted a little bit at curriculum sub that if you look at the results from our student behavior, risky behavior, our school climate survey is built off the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, the national survey. And you see that our students in 9th and 10th grade are well below the state and national averages. And when you hit 11th, and by the time you get to really 12th, we're either equal to, or in some cases, we're higher than. Shelley Warren, has said we go from a very protective community to, in some cases, a very permissive community. Our 12th graders have freedom. Very often they find themselves in social situations. We feel the need that we need to embed this in the 11th grade wellness classes to be unapologetic about the issues that they're telling us about in that anonymous survey.
Okay. Thanks.
Kevin? Just to echo some of the stuff that Susie said, thank you and the faculty for all the hard work on this. And I appreciate you bringing up that last point about the risky behavior, because I think that's a critical piece of this 11th grade wellness. And I think, it's a very well-placed intervention. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in that survey going forward.
Right.
The only question that I had was around the internship class. And I guess I'm just curious if you could talk to us a little bit about your anticipated enrollment and what you would do if you got, 100 kids who said they really wanted to do this, right? I'm imagining you have a
Well, we have a
target.
proposal for a position, so. We had some concern about that because we were going to do it within the confines of an existing teacher. If this is accepted tonight, you'll see messages beginning next week going out to families, outreach to local businesses and nonprofits. I don't know the number. We would have more flexibility if this position goes through than we will have if it doesn't go through for capacity for students. We have been working closely with a retired teacher from Minnechaug High School that did this for 20 years. She's been helpful in guiding us, and you know, she said, if you are looking at, 10 to 12 to 15 students each semester, you're knocking it out of the park. She said, we have almost 100 students at Minnechaug High, but we have block scheduling, and we have 20 years under our belt. So I would love to have 2 semesters of 12 to 15 students each. That would be great. And remember that we have other options. We have the community service learning. I think the new position would try to work in students who might not want to take the internship but want to have a little bit more formal opportunity at career awareness. And we're being very purposeful in the guest speakers that we're having into classes. I'm tracking them, and I'm going to include it in our next newsletter. Some of those are former LHS students, some are people from the community, and they're coming in, they're talking about college and career applications. So I think with all of that, I don't know how many students will actually be in the internship class per se, but the numbers 12 to 15 would be great if we could get 2 semesters of that. And if we get more than that, if we have the position, we have some flexibility. Our timeline would obviously be different this year because it's the 22nd of January. In an ideal world, as we move forward, we'd love to have the students signed up and we know who's going to take those by December, January of their 11th grade. And again, that's what Minnechaug High School is able to do after 20 years, but that would be great to know that as we move forward. We'll be kind of backfilling some of this year, but we'll certainly keep you informed and keep the superintendent informed of the numbers as we sign up, and we'll be doing some outreach if this is okay tonight.
Bronwyn?
I just have a follow-up question to the internship, which I think everybody's super excited about. So is it going to be built in, or you wait till you get the numbers to see how many sections you'll have, like maybe one in the fall and one in the spring, or are you just planning on?
I think we're going to look at the numbers.
Okay.
Exactly.
What if it's like too many kids? Would we have an opportunity to open up another section?
If we have this position, yes.
Okay. Would you have to take the class to do the internship?
Well, I think the class is the internship.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I was confused about.
So we also have to build capacity. We have some local companies and some local people who have been very supportive and said we'd like to be part of it. We anticipate that there'll be more. I'll give a really local example. LCTV. We'd love to get some more formal opportunity with LCTV. Tracy Durant and I have been chatting the last couple days, and we already have students, to be fair. We have some students who have always, but she'd like to do something a little bit more robust. And we have some businesses that we worked with the 2 students that we've worked with this year. Those businesses have given us good feedback. I think that they're going to be partners as we move forward. But I think we have to build the capacity. So we have to see what students are interested, and then we have to see the capacity of that we can place. I think that's one of the reasons why, Marty has challenged us to say, if it's just a course, that's a little overwhelming. I think you had made that point to me when we chatted a month or so again, and so this will leave us this will leave us some room to grow and to figure out and to adjust as needed.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, but it could be that if you have a dedicated position, it doesn't have to necessarily, in a kid's schedule, be confined to a particular block, right? In other words, you could have a internship teacher, a career coordinator, working with kids over several blocks. Some of them, 6 or 8 of them might be doing it like, let's say, B block, and another 6 or 8 might be doing it D block, and another 6 might be doing it F block, right?
You could have that
stretch-
freedom.
Right, that gives you the freedom to respond to the holes in the kids' schedules as opposed to the kids having to plug it into a dedicated block, so
Yeah,
that's
right.
the other thing I just want to, we mentioned, and I just want to keep plugging it, the River East School to Career Partnership is a state, it's a grant-funded agency. It's a partnership of a bunch of local districts that are involved in school to career activities, and that's been a resource to us as well, and we'll continue to partner with that group as well. So they've provided us the roadmap. There are very specific templates for work-based learning plans that we can use. There are written templates for agreements between school districts and job placements or work placements, internship placements. So there's a lot of the legwork and has been done, but we'll continue to refine it and bring it back to the committee. So I appreciate the enthusiasm and the excitement around it. I think it has great potential, even as a culture builder, as a way to fuel kids' passions. We're excited about it.
I want to thank Matt Flanagan, too. Matt Flanagan is our business chairperson, and he has really carried this effort this year, and he has done exceptional work. And we've learned, even though we've only worked with a handful of students, we've learned all those lessons that you want to learn in a pilot program and experience some of the, big lessons and some mundane lessons. Parking in downtown Springfield, for example, for one of our young ladies who's doing it. You don't think about those things. So the company that took us on has been amazing and great, and they said, but we have no parking, so good luck with that. So those are lessons, and you learn about where are better places or not so great places to place students. So I just want to acknowledge Matt's hard work, and Matt is committed to, even though he has his own department and his own challenge, he would like to continue to kind of serve in an advisory capacity as we kind of get this off the ground. So I just want to acknowledge his work.
Great. Is there a motion?
I have a follow-up question for that.
Hold on. Is there a motion?
Oh. Sorry.
I move that the school committee approve the Long Meadow High School Educational Opportunities booklet for the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Second?
Second.
Motion, second. Further discussion. Now I open up for questions.
Well, thank you.
But I think it was Kevin was first.
I had nothing.
Oh, was it Ryan?
No, Robin was first, but I also had a question.
Okay.
I wanted you to stop.
Go ahead, Robin.
Go ahead. Ryan, I already asked one. Go ahead.
No, I don't mind. You can go first. The schedule's student-driven, right? So if these new courses, nobody signs up for them, they don't happen. Is that correct?
Schedule is student-driven other than the courses they're required to take for graduation. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like nobody opted in for Algebra 1?
We would find some students for that.
We'll be having some conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Bronwyn?
Thank you. I was just wondering if there were some 11th graders, maybe like second semester, that were ready and like really eager to do it. Would that be something that you guys might look at if you didn't have a lot of 12th graders? Or is it kind of...
So we're going to try, the goal is so this year it's 12th grade, we had a lot of dialogue about that. A lot of that has to do with transportation.
Mhm.
So we looked at statistically at our 11th graders and how many have licenses and how many don't. So you're seeing a lot of our 11th graders get their license between, say, March and May.
Right.
We see the student parking lot just flourish at that time.
Driving abilities are different from 11th to 12th grade.
We look at the maturity level.
Yep.
And so many of their core courses are still part of up through 11th grade. I'm not saying that we wouldn't consider it in the future, because you have to consider everything.
Okay.
The example that the advisor who's now working for River East, who's a retired Minichog teacher, said, my first couple of years, I had to be really flexible. I had to be, I was finding things for, it was seniors in that case, but we were finding things, 2 months before. Now then she got at a point, like I said, she knew December of their junior year,
Right.
what they were lined up for. So we'll show flexibility. It is intentional to pick 12th graders, but we're gonna monitor things and see how they go.
And I just had a question, is the advanced computer science topics college prep or honors?
That's an honors level.
Okay.
That's an honors. I apologize if that's not on that. That's
No,
an
that's
honors
fine.
level
I
that
just-
absolutely, the rigor involved in that class
I
should
thought
carry
so, but
it.
just said after AP, so I thought so,
After
but I just wanted
AP,
to double
yeah,
check.
but it'll carry the honors level with it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is it okay just to do a thank you? So I just wanted to thank you all and everybody else who worked on this, especially for the other skills like compassion that comes along with the community service. And, I know there's like the technical and the real life and the practical skills, but, I've got an 8th grade daughter who's loving civics. She's also loving energy and sustainability, so when she gets into high school, y'all have meshed this all together, and I just wanted to say thank you, because it makes a big difference.
Thank you.
Susie?
I just had a technical question. So the position for the internship class is budget neutral, correct?
If you draw a line between that and the staff reduction
Right.
at the high school, that, yes,
Right. So the staff reduction at the high school will take place.
yes.
So again, I'm not, do we have to make an amendment to the motion that states per budget approval?
No, because I think they would figure out a way to offer the
That's right.
internship experience even if the
Even
budget
without-
didn't provide for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be sure. Okay.
It would be much more challenging, and it would constrain the opportunity
Right.
to schedule staff and kids and all
Right.
that, but, yeah.
Ideally, we want it with the new position, but, yeah, okay. Good. Just wanted to
Yeah.
be prepared for
Good
for
question.
any eventuality.
Good question.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Diane?
I kind of like the
Administrative reports. Marty?
No, you've heard enough from me tonight. Grinspoon Pioneer Valley Excellence in Teaching Awards. I would like to invite the school committee to a breakfast that we host on January 30th. I'll send you some details. January 30th, it's a breakfast for the nominators and the nominees. It's a big crew, about 40 some odd staff will be there, so good opportunity to thank and connect with staff. So we'll get you details on that.
Awesome, thank you. Is that it?
That's it. Keep it at that.
Sue?
I'll be short as well. We talked before about our seal of biliteracy. We're moving forward with that. That is a seal that students can earn if they meet expectations for ELA on the MCAS and then demonstrate proficiency in a second language. So that's pretty exciting for the high school. We've talked about our text exploration and history, K-8, math 7th and 8th, and physics at the high school in some pre-calc. And so we've had textbook publishers flying in from all over the country to dazzle us with their presentations. So that happened a little bit last Friday. We were pretty busy with that. Still in the process of starting the pilots and gathering feedback from stakeholders and things like that, but that's on the way. Let's see. Our lit coaches are doing a pretty cool project at the elementary school in response to some of the scores that we've received in the ELA writing piece. So they're doing some writing calibration in K through 5, which lets us compare student work at all the schools, and so that we can get some more standardized grading across schools, across grades. So that's been a big project of theirs, and it's been really helpful. Last Friday, we had a half day. Much of the district went to a workshop here at the high school. It was focused on mental health with an emphasis on suicide prevention, not a very uplifting PD, but gave us some good information. And the high school worked on NEASC, and I wish Tom was still here, but they're in the process of writing narratives that address how the LHS meets their specific NEASC principles, so they're all involved in that writing project to do that. Finally, a couple things that I didn't put in my report. I think Friday night is a fundraiser for robotics, if I remember correctly. So if you have kids that you want to drop off while you go out to eat for dinner, I think you can do that at the high school. And our civics in 8th grade, you reminded me, the DA's office I think is coming tomorrow to Glenbrook to do a cyber security presentation for some of the students at Glenbrook. So civics is being talked about across the district, and everyone seems to really be enjoying the new civics project, so that's been great.
Awesome.
Good enough?
I do not have a report. Armin?
Okay. So I've checked through our suggestion box, and there are still concerns about not having enough rooms that allow talking and collaboration during ice blocks. We had this issue was brought up back in November, and we decided then with Mr. Dunkerley to kind of table discussion about it and see if there were more concerns down the road. So I think now we'll have a conversation about it when we meet as a council. And I think maybe sending out a survey would be an option for that. Some student council updates. So the junior class is assembling a committee of juniors to kind of nail down a list of 8 to 10 plays for the senior class play in the fall. Preparations are kind of beginning earlier this year because the one comment we had from the senior class was that the fall window is kind of too small to kind of get everything ready, even though it was very successful. So we're kind of doing our preparations earlier. And then also the junior class is currently getting support from department chairs to propose a field trip to New York City, possibly at the end of March. The sophomores are preparing for their semi-formal dance, which is the first week of April. And the freshmen are planning a movie night tentatively for the first week of February.
Perfect. Any questions for Armin?
Yes, yeah. So maybe it was a blur, the course descriptions that Mr. Landers was talking about. Was there anything that was of interest or of concern or something you were wondering about? Curious.
I thought the one thing that I thought was interesting was the honors physics, because I think now there are going to be 5 levels of physics as opposed to 4 last year, because now there's CP2, CP1, Regs Physics, Honors Physics, AP1, and AP1 and 2. So I thought that was interesting how I don't know if there are going to be enough students for Honors Physics, but I guess we'll have to see.
Interesting. Yeah, it's good you picked up on that.
Yeah.
Lots of physics offerings. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good luck on your midterms.
Thank you.
That's right.
I have to go study.
You can go.
Great. Thanks, Armin. Any Calabro update?
We met last week. Andy Churchill, the former executive director, last Friday was his last day, so he's now working with DESE, but will still be involved with LPVC. So we have 2 interim co-executive directors. It's 2 people already work there, Don Jarvis and Anna Bishop. And they only remain in that position until the end of the year, and we put together a job description, and there's a couple people on the search committee. We're still looking for some superintendents to be on the search committee as well.
You know any?
So they said it, everyone volunteered to, so I don't know. But we haven't accepted yet, so I'm not sure.
Actually, I did indicate that I haven't told Bill Fonseca that yet, but
All right.
I did tell my colleagues that I'd be happy to help out, so.
Good to know, good to know, appreciate that. So that's pretty much, one thing they're discussing too is they're looking at increasing the hours of students have to spend in the certain technical courses. So they're talking about having more ninth graders at some point. Some schools already do that, but Don Jarvis was giving a lot of the advantages of that, so I'm sure the superintendents are discussing that too.
Yeah, it seems the state is sort of tightening up on the number of
Yeah.
hours that you need through your time in a vocational program, so
All right.
we'll have to look at that. Just generally, I think, we have 16 students or so who participate. That number has gone up or down. I think, there's some great opportunities over there. And if
Absolutely.
we were able to have more students take advantage of the tech ed programs over there, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, the facilities are
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's it though, thanks.
Kevin, any changes on energy and sustainability?
We haven't met since August.
Open space?
Yep, just a couple quick updates on open space. So we've met twice now. And one thing to really urge everyone, both within the room, students can also be a part of this, all the way from elementary school, all the way up through high school, and any individual within the town. There's going to be a survey coming out, soon, probably within the week.
It's out now.
So did it already get out?
Yeah.
So I didn't get the email that it 100% went out, so I wasn't going to say it like that. So.
I'm looking at the survey right now.
Awesome. So the survey has already went out. So it is a Survey Monkey. You also are able to do that survey at the town hall. You can go get a paper copy of it, but you can do it online. This survey is in regards to open space. Basically, it provides a variety of some open-ended questions, some very pointed questions as to what sort of open spaces are used, by you as an individual, by you as a family, that we're trying to get data on. The last one, we had a very limited amount of participation around the town. It was less than 300 people that were involved. So not a lot of people put their voice out there within the survey and gave feedback. And I would say something on there is going to strike you as something you use within the town. And all this survey is what's going to be done with it, it's going to be accumulated over a course of 2 to 4 weeks. We haven't put a strict timeline on it because we're going to watch to see how many surveys we get back. That's going to be used to develop a plan, a 7-year plan with regards to open space. There are many committee members across the town that are part of this committee, whether it be Conservation Committee, Planning Board, DPW are all involved in this, that all have their own specific duties within town and funds within town. So once that plan is put together from these evaluations, there's going to be some action items. The big thing I will say is, there are goals within this committee, a number of surveys we want back. Anybody you can pass it on to, your kids can take it as well. There's no age restriction. Please do so. Take the time. It shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes. And there's a lot of really good pointed questions on there to try to figure out which direction we want to go as a town. So with regards to open space. Okay.
So I guess I just got a question on that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's an online poll for people who want to give their opinions, which, when you're doing polling to be statistically relevant, would not be relevant, right? Like, we're not taking a unique sampling out of the 15,000 individuals or the 5,000 households, or however you want to define N in this equation. And now we're going to make decisions for the town based upon people are taking an anonymous survey and maybe taking it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I guess, have you discussed actually doing like a real poll? Like hiring somebody to take a sample, call those households in town, and get a real feel for what the town wants? Because I can just see this like vote stacking for like whatever constituency can get their people geared up to go on and fill out this poll.
So whenever you're filling it out, There are going to be statistics around who, so if it's basically all just high school students and they want a skateboard park, they want
Well,
specific
how do they know who I
things.
am? I'm self-identifying, right?
What's that?
I'm self-identifying.
Self-identifying, yep, you are self-identifying, so yeah, you could have, situations, I know the Survey Monkeys, yeah, you can have situations where people could be dishonest, and you definitely have that. And they'll have to watch out for that as they're evaluating the results. We have Pioneer Valley Planning who's evaluating the results for us. So yeah, you could have that.
What power does the Open Space Committee have to do anything?
So the Open Space Committee has 0 power.
So the check on this will be some sort of vote, town meeting, and the people who make the decision will be those that come out and vote?
You either come town vote where they put a specific article that's specific to something on the open space. This is just a recommendation. The one thing I'll say to this, many of the committee members are part of, other committees that do have that power. So you do have a kind of conglomerate of a bunch of different committees together here who have funding and, means to maybe do some of these. But there isn't any specific power that could enforce this. There's a tracking of it and saying what the town wants, but it all comes back to a lot of these other committees committing to getting some of them done, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin.
And just to reiterate what's in the press release, which again, not everybody has seen, hard copies are available, right? So in the press release, they say hard copies are available at the Storrs Library, Town Hall, Community House, LPS Central offices.
They're out there.
Right out there. Yeah.
There we go. And the Greenwood Center Council on Aging, right? So hopefully some hard copy ones will get completed as well. And they say that people can turn those in at the Community House, Parks and Rec office, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Yeah.
Survey Monkey have a feature where you can only take the survey once from a specific IP address. I think that's
You
one of
can
the
look
features.
at the IP address it's taken from, so it,
Yeah.
not necessarily, unless you have an advanced, you have a higher level of subscription,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get a report on multiple
Yeah.
responses from the same IP address.
So are people getting the survey in their email? Is that what Kevin's asking?
So the survey is on the town website. Are you on the town website, or did you get an email for?
I got an email from Barry this afternoon.
Yeah, I got an email from Barry.
So you will probably see this survey coming from multiple sources, whether it's school-related sources, whether it's town-related sources, because the town will also have it on the website. You may be on sports teams, you may be on other councils within town. You're probably going to see this email fairly regularly, because it is going to be a big push to get a lot of information back. And there are some very hot topics on that survey as it relates to the town. There's going to be a lot of people on one side and a lot on the other side of some of the topics that are on there that would have to be brought forward to the town to go anywhere anyways. This is just to give some direction of what the community wants all these committees focused on, and develop a plan from that. But
So, I guess that's another thing. You say, you use the word pointed, and then you use the word we want, or the committee want focused on. So in a ideal, statistically relevant poll, the question should be designed such that there is no pointed and or focus. Like the question should lead you to what the outcomes are, as opposed to pointing people to an outcome through questions.
So once you get into the question, you'll see it's not pointed questions. It's a little less of questions. It's a little bit more of gathering of information. I guess what I meant by pointed is, a skate park. There's, it's a very interesting topic. Fields. Do you prefer grass or do you prefer turf? Those topics aren't, do you want a turf? No, it's, do you use, turf fields in your normal daily activities? Yes, no. Do you use them, in Long Meadow? Not. Things like that. that are gathering information about topics that are, I would call, fairly hot topics. You know, there's a lot of, you know, one side of, you know, the fence or the other side on some of these. I wouldn't say any of them are leading you down the way. It's really just saying, me as an individual, what do I use? You know, do I walk my dog? There's a dog walking park, very important to me. And understanding from a town, there's 5,000 people at a dog walking park, but do we have a dog walking park? Maybe in some people's eyes, maybe not. So depending on which park you go to, whether it's Laurel or, but I mean, some people think it is or not. So it's really just trying to understand what we're using as a town and how much we're using it and how many individuals are really interested in these different things from open space. You know, there's things about birding, you know, people go do that. So that's important. So how many people is that important to, and should we be prioritizing it as a town? We don't know until we get some answers. That's what this is used to gather.
Until that one person responds 50 times that they like birding. Now you don't know who the.
So if we see it came from the, I'm sure you
but
can
you
go
wouldn't
back
know
to
that it came from that
IP
person.
address.
That's the thing. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to say I'm super excited that there's a lot of people in the town working together now.
Yeah.
I know this was something we talked about before, like for a lot of years. So, I mean, the process may not be like perfect, but I think in terms of collaboration, finally, of everyone getting together, I think that's really exciting and definitely a positive. So thank you for representing us.
Yes. So as you get a chance to fill it out, please do so, and encourage everyone else to do so as well.
Early and often.
Thank you, Mark.
Mayor Daly.
Finance sub.
Sure. So from our last meeting, it wasn't on our school committee agenda last meeting, but we did discuss a proposal to increase we have two positions that are paid hourly at the minimum wage, which changed as of January 1st. It was $12. It is currently $12.75. The two positions that are affected by this change would be our lunch monitors and summer custodial positions. The estimated cost, again, depending upon if they're filled for the entire year, all the approved positions is about $5,500 to $6,000. A portion of that could be paid, about $1,300 or so, $1,500 could be paid from the building rental revolving account, which pays for a portion of our summer custodial help. So the finance sub did recommend increasing the pay rate effective retroactive to January 1st up to $12.75. So it is on your agenda for consideration. Just as a caveat, the minimum wage is expected to raise, I believe, the next 3 years at 75 cents per year up to $15 in like 2023 or 24, I believe it is.
Questions for Tom?
And those adjustments have been made in the FY21?
No, but I believe we can absorb them, assuming that we do decide to increase the rate.
Yes, Scott.
Is this an actual choice? Like, aren't we violating the law if we don't do this?
No, municipalities actually are exempt from the minimum wage.
Government makes rules for other people,
Yes.
not for themselves.
Interesting.
Yes. So we wouldn't not have to do it, but I would just.
Tom, the town did this on theirs, right?
I don't know that they've moved any rates recently.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee approve raising the pay rate for lunch monitors and summer custodians to $12.75 an hour, retroactive to January 1st, 2020.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further questions for Tom? Or is any comments from Finance Sub in regards to discussion?
I just think it's wrong to pay them less, that's all.
Okay.
It's the source, that was the end of our conversation, I think.
Yes.
Agreed.
It was pretty quick.
All right. Take a vote. All in favor? Okay. That passes. Evaluation sub?
Yes, we met a couple hours ago, and superintendent presented mid-cycle documents. And just to talk very briefly, the topics that we discussed the most, I think, were the safety forum, the changing vision of what student success means, the equity audit, and the BCBAs that are working with staff and improving their capacity in the area of challenging behaviors, which we all thought was a really great thing to read about. If the document itself will be in your packet for next time, but there isn't going to be any sort of like slideshow. So if you do have questions, you can look at the documentation and have them then.
Okay. Any questions for Ryan or anybody? Okay. Ongoing business, none. Dr. O'Shea, DESE application?
I promise I won't click on this PowerPoint. I have a complex now about PowerPoints. No, this is, tonight seeking the school committee's support of an opportunity to participate in an innovative science assessment at grades 5 and 8. So this slide sort of captures what's involved with this. There is an accompanying letter that I'm requesting you authorize Chairman Ray to sign on behalf of the committee. It would add to the signature provided by the LEA President Kathy Rosado and myself to support our interest in this grade 5 and 8 innovative MCAS assessment. It essentially is more of an opportunity to add authentic performance-related tasks to the end-of-course assessments at grade 5 and 8. I think it fits nicely with our interest in redefining and thinking differently about student success. I think it fits nicely with our interest in project-based approaches to learning. Fits nicely with the introduction of STEAM programming at the 6th grade, and many other things that are happening. So I'd ask the committee to consider it. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Sue and I participated in a webinar only late last week. This is sort of time sensitive. I would normally give you more lead time on this, but the opportunity presented itself midweek last week. We did the webinar on Thursday, and they're seeking letters of support by today. So if the committee chose to support it, I would scan it and send it this evening to DESE. So.
Question. Is this in addition to the regular science MCAS that they have to take?
It would replace most of it. By federal law, they cannot eliminate MCAS completely at grades 5 and 8, but it would reduce the amount of time kids spend on the traditional MCAS at grades 5 and 8 in science, and replace it with more authentic performance-based tasks.
So this still includes traditional MCAS questions, but half as long. So they will have to take the federally approved assessment in science.
Portions of it. A reduced, help me out, Sue.
I think it was, there's 3 sections now, I'll take one. So,
Okay.
one
They'll
testing
take
session.
one section and then
they'll do
this
something else, right?
innovative
Yeah, some performance-based tasks to meet the other.
I think about over assessing kids. I mean, obviously the performance assessment is great. My concern is just adding something more, stressing them out more. But if we don't think that that's.
I think they love that kind of stuff. We've been watching some stuff over at Glenbrook and Williams, and they're totally into it.
Ran it by, we chatted, I sent it to the elementary principals, the middle principals, our science coordinator at elementary and middle, and they were all excited about it. So it doesn't, I'd say the net result isn't that there'll be more testing, it just replaces 2/3, I suppose, of the traditional science MCAS at grades 5 and 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
and this has this part of it is low stakes, or is this still the high stakes component of it? Is it a pilot, or is it
no
replacement?
There would still be accountability determinations tied to the results of this. So if that's what you mean by high stakes, yes. Yeah, that part would not go away as I currently understand it. Is that, I mean,
Yeah, and I think they'll use that one section of the kind of the more formal MCAS and weight that a little more heavily, so.
Marie, I have a small edit just because it's such a formal, it's going to be such a formal.
Yep.
After the first time you mentioned Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education,
Yep.
can you just put in parentheses DESE?
DESE, yep.
Because then we reference DESE, but there's no,
I would happily do that. My concern is I have Kathy Rosato's signature on this copy in front of me right now. They are, today is the deadline for this.
Yep.
Definitely, that's a great edit.
Yeah,
But
so-
my concern would be, unless I go knock on Kathy's door right now.
Kathy, if you're
She's
watching,
probably
sorry.
watching.
On my right arm.
I know she's watching, but I think she's under the weather, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, though.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So, can I, for anybody watching, the new assessment design maintains the important breadth of coverage of the Massachusetts frameworks, but encourages teachers to take their students deeper into content to prepare them for authentic application. So it would still, for anyone that needs that reassurance, it's not that we will still be anchored in the frameworks, in the math, science, technology, and engineering framework. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. All right, so I think we need consensus.
I was just gonna make a comment that I think it's, as long as they only have to take the one part, it seems like they probably will enjoy the other part. And also, I'm just excited that they're maybe moving in the direction of these types of assessments and maybe away from some of the traditional ones every time, so.
Yep.
It's encouraging.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other further comments or concerns, questions? So consensus, we're behind?
Yes.
All right, great. And authorization to sign? All right. Well, we can authorize Bronwyn. Oh, then you'd have to change the letter and go find Kathy.
Can't do it.
Okay, the last thing, we have proposed charter changes. So Marty and I got an email from Lynn, the town manager, on January 16th. The Charter Review Committee submitted their final report. So the Charter Review Committee was brought together to look at the charter and to suggest changes to the charter that may be needed. Since the charter's been in place for a long time, a few changes have been made. There were some recommended changes concerning the school. The way Lynn had put it was that they were going to be reviewing these two things. Yesterday, they were reviewing the non-financial impact to the school, well, to everybody for the charter changes. And then in February, they're going to be addressing the charter changes that will have a financial impact. The entire report's on the longmeadow.org. If you go in the box and search Charter Review Committee, you'll see it'll pop up final report if you want to see it. So on 116, I advised Lynn that as a single member of the school committee, I don't have power to make decisions on my own without the support of my board. We weren't going to be meeting until tonight, but that I talked to Marty and we suggested mutually that we thought we should send this to our counsel, legal counsel, for her advice on the proposed changes. And over the weekend, we got the changes from Ginny Tate, who worked on it. And I'm just going to pull them up, and I'll share these with an email to everybody as well. So I sent a message to the town manager and just said, while we not meet until Wednesday, I have this from Jenny. Basically, in their opinion, in our legal counsel's opinion, some of the changes should have additional language. Some of them are inconsistent with state law. So I outlined it. Section 33B should also mention the powers which the school committee has under the state regulations as well as federal laws and regulations. Section 33C problematic for a few reasons. For example, the reference to annual evaluation without reference to Massachusetts law and regulations, as well as the superintendent's contract, can be misinterpreted. So there was just some, fine points. Again, the process for evaluation, especially with a seasoned superintendent, is more nuanced and time-consuming than an annual evaluation may indicate. They thought 66B was inconsistent with Massachusetts law, raises the same concerns. And then finally, the reference to the school committee discharging anyone other than the superintendent of schools without the involvement of the superintendent is in violation of Massachusetts law. There was a section about the town couldn't being able to set the necessary vote for the removal of the school superintendent. That is reserved for the school committee. And then the council reviewed the other changes to the town charter and did not see anything which stood out. So I will send this to everybody just for you to have for your records. We sent this, and the select board was going to discuss this at their meeting last night. I was out of town, just got back, so I haven't had a chance to look at the video to see what they did or did not do, but wanted to give you an update. Make sure that you all felt that sending it to legal counsel was appropriate, and then forwarding it to Lynn as such was the thing to do, and open it up for any questions, discovery, or further direction you might want going into the financial ones that impact us. I don't know which ones that those are at this point. I'll ask Lynn to send those to us and give us a little more advance notice on the financial impact ones, so we can get Jenny and a team on those as well. Questions, concerns? Yes, Kevin.
Thank you for going to our legal counsel. I think that was very helpful. I just am curious about 66B, since within the last year, that was a very important portion of the charter. And I'm not sure I understand what you said. So,
yeah, I'll forward you guys to her direct language so you can.
Right, but I just want to make, because again, I feel like I learned a lot within the last year about this one section of the charter. And it says that it takes 5 voting members of the school committee to hire a superintendent.
Right.
That's what it, no,
it does.
To hire, yes.
Yeah.
But again, in the current charter, it only takes 4 to remove the superintendent. And it seemed like the proposed change was to make those two things consistent, so it would be 5 for both.
Well, it's not 5 for both.
Well, I know currently it's not.
No, currently it's a majority.
Oh, okay, so there's no numbers.
So it doesn't have to be 4, right? There's no numbers.
In the current one, there are no numbers associated with it.
Correct.
Majority of the committee as assembled.
Right, correct.
Okay.
So as long as a quorum is assembled.
Sometimes there's 4.
Okay, so understood. So that's important. So are you saying that our legal counsel said we cannot change it to at least 5 members?
No, in section 66 goes further than this, and so.
Okay.
And so her changes were more the other part of it, where it was referring to being able to discharge like Tom or Sue without Marty being involved in it.
Sure.
And the school committee doing it. And according to legal counsel, that is not appropriate against Mass General Law. Yes.
So the one that we have here is the change that.
She didn't have any concerns with the change to the 5, correct? As long as we don't have a concern with that change. And I guess that's a question. Does anybody have a concern with it changing the hiring and?
It seems having them be consistent would be very appropriate.
Yeah, I agree.
And that seemed very strange a year ago, that those two things were different.
Oh, I agree. Totally agree. Yes.
So they're going to look at Ginny's proposed changes and come back to us again.
I don't know if they'll come back to us or not. We don't have a say in this. We are advisory to the charter changes that are being proposed. They'll debate them at select board, then they will put them on the town warrant for a vote at annual town meeting, at which point if something affects us, typically at town meeting, somebody from the school committee would be asked to give an opinion on that specific change. And one of us would get up and say, as a school committee, we do not recommend that. So I guess we're helping them. So this is kind of like a 2 or 3 steps. We're helping them, guide them now in their debate on whether they want to even put this on the ballot, or a town meeting ballot, and then at town meeting, we'll have a chance to look at the warrant ahead of time and vote yes or no on what we think is appropriate as a recommendation before town meeting.
Can I just add that the proposed revised changes to the charter span, every town function and many town employees. I just want to assure folks that the changes aren't specific to the superintendent or the school committee.
Yeah, and it's really nicely done. I mean, they're in different colors, so you can see where the changes are being strikeouts, so you can see different changes. There's also a very helpful opinion or a reasoning section on the front, and there's also a very lengthy dissent opinion from one of the members of the charter committee. Okay. We do not have an executive session, so I would accept the motion.
Move to adjourn the January 22nd, 2020 school committee meeting.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for vote. All in favor? Thank you very much, and join us for our next meeting, which should be the public hearing on the budget.